We welcome today the top female chef in Italy, Jessica Rosval, who is, believe it or not, a native Montrealer. Jessica was recently honored in Italy's yearly guide to the country's best restaurants, the 2021 Guida dell'Espresso. Since 2013, she's been working at the star chef Massimo Bottura's three-starred Michelin restaurant called Osteria Francescana in Modena, Italy. Jessica, we are so happy to introduce you to our community today. What inspired you to become a cook?
Hi everybody, first of all. Thanks for having me. It's really, really exciting to be here. What inspired me to be a cook? It's a bit of a funny story because I wasn't one of those kids that, was inspired, to cook as a child growing up. But I always loved food. I was always the kid sneaking into the kitchen, hiding into the pantry, sneaking snacks into my room. Like, I just have always loved eating food. And then I had my first restaurant job. I was 15 years old. I got one of those jobs hostessing at this Italian restaurant, like Italo-American restaurant on the West Island of Montreal. So I'd go there after class from, 5 to 9. And that was the first time that I was ever exposed to the restaurant world, which is a very complex, multifaceted, chaotic space, and it's all of this confusion and commotion, but there's so much order at the same time. And then the results are, putting people around a table and having them share a meal, and that brings a lot of joy to me and inspired me back then. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of that system. I wanted to be a part of those teams. And at that same restaurant, being, always sneaking food, I would always be in the back kitchen, sneaking like little bits of bread that came back from the bread baskets, on the tables. And as I was kind of eating this bread, I would watch the kitchen, which for me was the beating heart of the entire place. It was, what seemed to me like this pirate ship, of just crazy characters and like fire and confusion again. But then dishes were coming out. And for me, it was fascinating. And that's when I realized that was something that I really deeply wanted to be a part of. So I signed up for culinary school when I was 18 years old. After doing a few more front of house jobs, I finished my schooling, my high school and my CEGEP. And then I went into culinary school where, there's something very scary about, coming to this understanding that absolutely nothing about something, and that was me walking into culinary school. I was like, wow, I actually don't know anything, and that's when I kind of started on this journey to discover as much as I possibly can about food and restaurants and cooking. And I'm still on that journey now, even 20 years later, almost 20 years later, where the more you keep learning, the more you realize all the things that you don't know. So it's been this ongoing process that I've just really been loving for all of this time. But that's where it started, a small Italian restaurant on the West Island of Montreal.
Wow. Well, my goodness, with 18 too, right? So you started early and you've come a really long way now, because now you've been literally, made, top female chef in Italy. So how did that come to be? So how did you come to Italy and yeah, how did you get here?
Yeah, to Italy. It was, kind of crazy. I had been working for years in Montreal. I was kind of itching to, travel outside, have a different experience. I moved to British Columbia, where I lived and worked in the Rocky Mountains for a couple of years. And then again, that experience was wonderful and fulfilling, but I was, eager to go out and explore more outside of Canada. And so I've always kind of lived, my life leaving a little space open for new opportunities, never close the door on anything, always be ready to kind of change your plans, and follow a new feeling. And I was presented with this opportunity to travel into Europe for a year. My partner at the time was going to go to school in Milan, was by chance offered this like full scholarship. So of course you say, you can't say no. And I said, I'm coming with you. This is the one time that I'll ever be able to say I have a good reason, a great person to travel with. And we moved into Italy. And that's when I started, I came here thinking I was just going to take that year off and travel and maybe work in a bakery or like a butcher shop or just something very easy. But I actually ended up eating at Osteria Francescana after 1 week of arriving in Italy. And that's where I met Massimo. That's where I was exposed to his cuisine. I had followed him for years, even beforehand. He's a chef who's always inspired me as well. So being able to meet him was just, first having that tasting menu changed me and changed my life. It made me understand how powerful food could be, not just on a taste and texture level, but also on an emotional level, also on an intellectual level. And that's something that I hold Massimo in high regards for, and a reason that I respect him so much is his ability to bring food into this new dimension, into this, this very cerebral dimension. And it's something that I really appreciate. And so, after that dinner, we had these great conversations, and I knew that I had to abandon all my plans of traveling around and working in my, bakery and all that stuff. And I said, no, this is the only time I'm going to have Massimo standing in front of me, probably in my entire life. And I took that opportunity to ask him if he would, take me on as a cook, as a prep cook, as a dishwasher, as a floor scrubber, as anything. And then he accepted to give me a trial. And I did a couple days trial, and then I just stayed on board, and that was 8 years ago. So
it's funny how all of these coincidences have led to you literally now living there, working there, and excelling at this wonderful profession. How would you say being Canadian influences your work as a cook, or maybe even how you experience your environment in Italy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I do see a common trend amongst a lot of Canadians, and it's something that I'm so proud of. I find that Canadians, being, raised or grown in a country that's relatively young and very multicultural. If you look at all of the big cities, I'm from Montreal, it's a huge multicultural center, even Toronto, everywhere. I find that Canadians are very open, open-minded, open spirit, welcoming of people, and very curious as well, to learn about other people's cultures. And I think that having that attitude when confronted with something new, when confronted with something unknown, saying, yes, tell me more, yes, I'm interested. Why is it like that? And I think that that's something that's very, that helps a Canadian really thrive abroad, because it's not about I'm coming and I'm just going to be Canadian in Italy. I'm coming to Italy because I want to be totally absorbed in Italian culture, and I want to learn the language, I want to eat the food, and I want to become Italian. And it's that ability to kind of morph and appreciate other people's cultures that I think is a real strong point about Canadians that I am so proud of. I'm so proud to walk around, and when people ask me where I'm from, I was just like, I'm Canadian, and every time, I say I'm Canadian, 90% of the time people are like, I love Canadians, I love Canada, right away.
I can also agree with you over here. So many Germans have told me, I live in Germany, and so many Germans have told me how they love Canada. I even met actually this weekend a lady who's a taxi driver, and she's never been to Canada, but that's her number one country. So,
it's I hear it all the time. People are inspired by how nice Canadians are, very polite, again, welcoming people. I think that that's something that's in our culture that I'm so proud of. The nature in Canada, people are just mesmerized by seeing these nature shows about Canada. I come across tons of Italians that say always that their dream has always been to go in Canada and really experience nature for what it is. And I mean, those are some things that we should really, really be proud of.
And may I ask, I mean, you really got me going now, because you said, oh, you want to be Italian, you love Italy. So what is it that you love about Italy? What keeps you there?
I find Italy is such a fascinating country because, again, my interpretation of Canada, is that it has such a different history. It has a very deep history. It has a very complex history. But what's happening in Europe, what there is to study here, thousands of years of the Roman Empire and the wars and the etc. and the art and the music and the beauty. And I think that I'm really inspired by that. I'm also very inspired and interested in Italian traditions, and these ongoing traditions that exist in all of these different Italian towns, how they're interpreted and reinterpreted nowadays. I think that those are things that really inspire me. And then, of course, Italian food. Again, I live for
Oh.
food. I'm passionate about food. And not only do Italians have a huge amount of respect for their produce, for their animals, for the integrity of their product, but also, for the simplicity of the preparations and the dishes that really enhance the product in and of itself. So when you eat a tomato in Italy, it is going to be the best tomato that you've ever had, and there's going to be nothing more than just a drop of olive oil on top. And I really, really appreciate the complexity of that simplicity when it comes to that kind of food, because that's really something that's very difficult to accomplish. But it's just years and years and generations of families producing these items, these food items that really have made them a global leader in terms of very, very high quality food. And that's a main reason why I'm here and why I can't stop eating when I'm here.
So do you bring in a bit of that Canada, the taste of Canada into your dishes in Italy?
Well, again, taste, what is the taste of Canada? I find that's something that people ask me very often. They say, what's Canadian cuisine like? And I go back and I'm always trying to think, like, I don't want to say, what I am grown up eating, but because I have a mix of so many different cultures in my own family, cultures and religions. City centers are so influenced by different cultures as well. So what is a Canadian dish, truly Canadian, besides, like, of course, there's poutine and la tourtière and, like, the ingredients like the deer and the elk that we're eating there. But I think Canadian cuisine in of itself is yet to be defined. I think that Canada is a very, very multidimensional country. I think that there are some beautiful recipes as well, coming out of all kinds of different areas of the country. It's hard to define. But again, I think that in terms of a Canadian cooking, again, maybe it's just this approach to this mishmash, of all of these different experiences, kind of like pulling all these different cultures together into one dish, or different travels, or different stories, or different ideas. Again, just kind of being this curious traveler, just kind of being this person who's, again, I come from a very interesting background, where, I have a very, multicultural family, multi-religious family, I'm an Anglophone, but I was born in Quebec, and I'm it's just this ongoing, mix of all of these different cultures that I feel extremely blessed to have been exposed to. But that's something that has extended into traveling around the world, and then being able to pull in all these different experiences and try and translate those into a dish, and see if you can communicate kind of this bohemian life, through food, which I think is really, it's very difficult to do. But that's one way to put it.
Well said, because I think this multiculturalism and culture, I mean, the way you said it best, it's Canada, and it's also a part of your experience. And I was reading recently in an article that you are actually the culinary director at an association for the integration of women. And this is a really good example of how Canadians abroad are also helping their communities. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, definitely. So the Association for the Integration of Women, the AIW, is a nonprofit that I started last year with my very, very good friend, who's also the founder. Her name is Caroline Caparossi. And it is a program. It is a group of migrants that are developing systems in Modena here to help women, migrant women, integrate into Italian life, into Italian society, and into the Italian workforce. The European Union has deemed migrant women between the ages of 25 and 35 to be the most disadvantaged group in Europe right now, often coming from bad situations back home, single moms, perhaps, with, lots of children. Maybe there's a language barrier. There's a lot of different factors that can come into play that are putting these women at a disadvantage. So what we're trying to do is create these programs that are going to help them create communities. So meet people, make friends, develop professional skills. So in this case, it's a 4-month culinary training program that I've developed that is totally supported by the Community Modena and social services. So these women are actually paid to come to the classes for the 4 months, at which point after they've had this training, which is not just, of course, the technical skills, but also different integrational skills. So Italian language courses or communications courses or workers' rights, how do I read my paycheck, what am I entitled to, as a worker, etc. And we want to prepare them for Italian life as well. And then at the end of this program, we work in collaboration with different companies and agencies to ensure that they actually have job placement after those 4 months, at which point we'll still follow them, of course, and make sure that everything is going right. But the real thing is, just get them going, build that confidence, help them, grow their roots, and flourish within the community here. And so it's been very, very successful. We're training 4 women right now in the culinary program. There's also a sewing program that was launched last year because we had to hold on the culinary because of COVID, of course. But then, so we launched the mask making, which was, we were able to employ 8 women throughout the entire first quarantine here in Italy, just by sewing masks and selling masks. This is even before masks were mandated, we just started making them. And so that was a really interesting, and now that sewing program is actually in collaboration with Neki, which is a huge sewing machine company here in Italy. And they've actually built a shop here in town where women are currently working full-time from our program. So, there's so many ways that we can help them integrate. We have a great group of people that are all collaborating together with different skill sets as well, So right now it's sewing and culinary, and then who knows what the next one is going to be. So it's a very exciting time, and we feel very, very fortunate.
Well, I would just like to tell you that, on behalf of our community, we're so proud of you. We congratulate you for becoming Italy's best chef, but also for being a role model, I think, to all of us. In really actively also contributing to your community locally in Italy. And I think this is something that we'll definitely be taking with us today. And now I just want to hand over, the stage to you, basically.
I think that Canada is one of the most beautiful countries in the entire world. I think that Canadians are the nicest people in the entire world. I am so proud to be Canadian. I am so proud to go home every single time. And I just think that, having a community of us around the world, kind of spreading the Canadian love is exactly what the world needs right now. So, I'm giving you all a huge hug.
Thank you so much for this contribution, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.